Welcome back to 7th Grade Mustache. On today's episode, we'll be speaking about recap 2023. The purpose of this show is to highlight things that people may have already forgotten, things that people may have moved on from because they were coerced into not thinking about these things, or the fact that there was such a high frequency of events and information coming at you this year that you may have even forgotten these things because you're focused on the current psyop or whatever is going on that's eating up all of your attention. We'll start with January 2nd, 2023. Damar Hamlin. The Buffalo Bills safety collapsed on the field in the middle of a game with the Cincinnati Bengals at Paycor Stadium in Cincinnati. The team and independent medical personnel and local paramedics administered CPR and restored Hamlin's heartbeat before he was taken from the field in an ambulance to the University of Cincinnati Medical Center. So what you witnessed is something that had been happening for the past 2.5 years, where you would see athletes, young people in the prime of their life, in peak physical condition, at the top of their game, collapsing on the field in the middle of games on the court from myocarditis or any type of heart arrhythmia or heart-related problems related to things that you and I know, but we're not going to say what it is.
Middle school, high school, college.
Even elementary kids in gym class.
I can't think of a case right now. That's why I didn't want to name that.
There is.
But most of them, a lot more in Europe. It was reported much more in Europe. It was reported much more in other places. It wasn't reported to the same level here. And the only reason that they reported that one is because it was during a live game. If that, say for instance, there was a tape delay on that game, like a 2-minute tape delay, we wouldn't have seen that shit.
But listen, the reason why I see this, and it's tragic that it happened to that brother, but I look at that and I laugh a little bit because God will show you something. Even as much as people try to cover shit up, the truth always comes out. And as the X-Files used to say, the truth is out there. And damn it, that shit was right in everybody's face on national television. Millions of people watching this.
Look up Roscoe. I think he's back playing. I think they're playing. He's playing.
But the crazy part about the aftermath is that they would not let him speak.
There wasn't one. Yeah, there wasn't an aftermath. How about that? There wasn't one. There was so much damage control that was going on, and they attempted to cover it up and psyop it, and you saw him. The crazy part about it is you saw him masked up. He was wearing masks, but he'd never been wearing them before. No. How about when you were talking about damage control? The NFL is always about damage control. Every team, every person donated to his fund, all kinds of stuff. But ain't nobody talked about what the hell's going on here. But yeah.
It was a 100% cover-up because they wouldn't let him talk after being released from the hospital. They wouldn't let him speak to anybody. He wasn't on ESPN or any of that shit. And it wasn't until they showed him at the game that they would let him speak. And I'm like, dude, do you know how many sports reporters was knocking down his door trying to get a word from him after he was released from the hospital? Even when he was in the hospital, not a single peep. But look at all these other instances where people are injured or they're trying to get a word on the story when something happens and they get nothing.
No privacy. They literally bombard these people. That's what we're talking about.
But it's so bizarre that it was the complete opposite when this happened, which means that the FBI, which works closely with the NFL, was part of this media blackout that covered the entire situation surrounding his accident and his recovery.
Look, the silence speaks the loudest. When people ain't saying shit, they saying everything you need to hear. You know what I'm saying? That's one of them deals where I'm like, well, what about this? What about that? And they made sure that this and that didn't get out there. And so all we're saying is that I told you so.
The piccolo player is a motherfucker.
Is a motherfucker.
And in this episode, you're gonna see why the piccolo player is such a motherfucker.
Our recap are the things that we try to get out there first that now are making a spin. One of them, we talk about off the air was they're trying to pass a law that these big venture capitalists, these Black Rocks and what's the other fund? I can't think of the funds. There's three major funds that they pretty much run the world. These are three huge hedge funds that run the world. BlackRock is the one that just comes to mind. Other one is they're trying to pass a law that they can't buy these single-family homes. You still can have an investment portfolio, but these huge ones won't be able to buy it. And I think it passed. But that one was kind of swept under the rug. But the reason is that goes back to what we've been talking about for the past 2 or 3 years, that they're moving. That Schwab was the one who told us that they were moving in that direction where you won't own anything. Well, it's getting even worse. Before, me and Roscoe are telling you, people won't be able to afford homes. People can't afford cars. But I'm hearing reports that people won't be able to afford their own clothes. That clothes there will be no ownership in the future.
All right, settle down, because we got to stay on track. One lunar cycle later, 30 days later, exactly 30 days later, on February the 2nd, 2023, East Palestine, Ohio, a train derailed at 8:55 Eastern Standard Time on February 3rd, 2023. A Norfolk Southern freight train derailed in East Palestine, Ohio, about a quarter mile west of the Ohio-Pennsylvania state line. 20 of the cars contained hazardous materials including vinyl chloride, ethylene glycol, ethyl hexyl acrylate, butyl acrylate, and isobutylene. The train derailment ignited a fire that covered the town of East Palestine in smoke.
How long did it burn for? Wink, wink. I mean, that thing burnt for months. If you take those numbers, that thing was still burning almost a month later or some crazy number.
Well, check this out. Disposal of the leftover contaminated water and soil raises questions about toxic chemicals' life cycle as the waste heads to facilities of historic problems. EPA testing has confirmed that chemicals in soil and water include vinyl chloride, phosphine, benzene, and a range of other volatile organic compounds known as VOCs and particulate matter.
Now, hold it. Doesn't vinyl chloride, that's the particulate matter. It gets into the water. But one of them things actually burns in water also. That was a nasty situation.
Benzene.
But it's benzene. Okay, cool. I couldn't remember.
Phosphine and benzene do. Because phosphine is phosphorescent, so it can burn.
Yeah. Well, look, one of the reasons people were so up in arms about it was because it was very similar to a Netflix movie. It was one of the...
No, this movie was made almost a year, they say 2 years before this came out, but yet it was released around the same damn time.
It was verbatim the same type of situation. I tried to put personal stuff out there, but the only thing that it let us know is that that kind of thing was much more common than we realized. In the industry that I'm in, I'm going to tell you, I don't know about the burning part, but the derailment happens. That's just life. But that chemical spill part, I think we learned in that period of time how much more common that was. And that movie, again, many of our people are educated through entertainment, and that had people up in arms, bro.
This is the problem, though. The derailment is not what caused the fire, because what they saw when they got the doorbell ring camera footage from people who live near the train tracks, who facing the train tracks, they saw cars going down the train tracks on fire. So this goes back to what I was saying almost a year ago about how this is the work of a saboteur and how this was done on purpose. Now, if they had the heat sensors inside those boxcars, they would know that the temperature has gone too high or a fire is happening and he needs to stop the train and, put the fire out.
The heat sensors are in the track.
But they also have them in the cars, though.
I don't know if they... Well, hold it. The point I was making is that if there was...
Okay, hold on. Stop. The point I'm making is that we're told the derailment caused the fire.
Yeah.
But the fire was already happening when the train was still rolling down the tracks, because you have multiple ring cameras showing a train on fire going down the tracks. So this completely throws this narrative out the window, man. So this is what's going on. There's secret wars, ladies and gentlemen, that are being fought against rogue nations and the United States. And this is another example of how rogue elements are trying to start shit in America. As a matter of fact, you sent me a news story about 2 weeks ago about how the municipal water supplies were being monitored by the FBI and Homeland Security because there were attacks by hackers to try and penetrate them and bring them down.
There were two articles. One of them was, of course, Russia, but the other one was Israeli hackers. It was some weird stuff about that.
No, it was okay, so these municipal companies were sold these software programs to control the water treatment systems by Israeli companies. And then it was said that people who aren't friendly to Israel were attacking this software that was sold to them by the Israelis. Yeah. Now, we don't know. It could be rogue Israeli motherfuckers that want to say death to America and bring America down, because then that brings to mind the dancing Israelis from 9/11 that were dancing and partying when they saw the Twin Towers coming down. They were art students, quote unquote.
There were a couple dude, I saw that article. I know which one you're talking about. But there's a couple conversations that we've had on the air. And one of the things is, you keep reading these old articles about Israel is going to bring on the Third World War, like it's like clockwork, like it's a plan. And when you go far enough back, in the 50s, Israel attacked one of our warships in the Gulf. We thought it was our enemy. Come to find out, it's them, and we stopped them. We didn't stop them that time. I don't know if they sank it or not. Then another time in the 80s, they attacked one of our warships, cut off communications, did all kinds of crazy stuff, but we don't fire back because, quote unquote, they're our ally. Like, it's a mistake. It's not a mistake. What they're doing is testing their weapons to see if they can fuck with us, and then they find out, oh, wait, we ain't on their level yet. But then they create this narrative. See, this is the big thing about narrative. They create the narrative that Palestine is their enemy and that they're a worthy opponent, when clearly they're not. But Palestine has allies, and so they look like they're in trouble. And one of the things that really annoys me, I want to point something out. Kanye just pointed out he had that red list of all these different companies and government agencies that are headed by people from this country that we're talking about. And those people were offended, but there's a lot of people whose eyes were open when you realize that they run a good portion of our military, they run these companies, yada, yada, yada. But I just think it's odd that in that country where they call home, they have free health care. They have all the different things. Their politicians are different. They have all these different things that they tell us that we can't do over here, but they can do it over there. But these companies are run by people from over there. Why wouldn't it work over here if it works over there? That just makes me. You see, there's this huge hypocrisy that's being pushed out there. We can't afford free health care. We can't afford this. We can't afford that. But where you go to spend your summers and weekends or whatever, they got it there. That's a narrative. A narrative is way too nowadays. A narrative is way more powerful than reality, and these people are shaping narratives. That's what they do, and I think that many of our people are falling for these narratives because, okay, I've seen it on TV, I've seen the article, but why did that article pop up on your phone? We've been talking about that for years. Like, hey, based on just your conversation, certain things will pop up on your phone, and so now they have the ability to monitor what you're doing and what you're looking at, and they'll send an article right to your phone that, hey, don't you support Israel? Don't you support this? Don't you support that? And I'm like, I support life. I support people. It's a tough one. I think it's odd that once they found out they had oil reserves in certain parts of Palestine and natural gas reserves, that all of a sudden they want to take that part. I digress. Look, beware of the narrative, and we've been telling you that since we started this podcast, that people are shaping narratives more than to the point where those narratives are shaping people's reality.
Independent public health experts say water and soil are likely contaminated with dioxins, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAH, perfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS, and other dangerous compounds. But the EPA resisted calls from independent health experts. They also resisted call from Ohio U.S. senators to test for those chemicals. The soil was scheduled to go to the U.S. Ecology landfill in Belleville, Michigan, which sits at the edge of Metro Detroit and just a few miles from Ann Arbor, two of the state's most populous regions. The contaminated water is slated to be sent to a Texas molecular deep well injection facility in Deer Park in the same county as Houston. The most likely contaminant to be released in the environment in Michigan in the near term is PFAS, a highly toxic class of chemicals widely used in firefighting foam that experts say was likely deployed in East Palestine during the derailment. Also widely used in other industrial products, or may have been on board in the train tankers. The U.S. Ecology landfill receives, treats, and stores toxic waste from around the country. In such facilities are carefully constructed units designed to protect groundwater and surface water resources. However, the U.S. Ecology landfill has a history of leaks and safety violations, though it is one of a very few states east of the Mississippi that can take most of the dangerous toxic waste. If contaminated soil is sent to the facility, the chemicals would probably end up in the property's leachate, which is formed when rainwater filters through a landfill's waste. Some chemicals are removed from the leachate by a wastewater treatment plant on site, but the facility is only required to test its discharge quarterly. East Palestine and Belleville have become sacrifice zones for our nation's most harmful wastes. About 2 million gallons of contaminated water was sent about 1,300 miles by truck and rail from the wreck site to Texas Molecular. Over 150,000 deep well injection wells exist nationwide, and they are controversial sites because they are prone to leaking toxic waste into groundwater and are thought to be causing earthquakes.
Whoa. Why is that? Glance over the earthquake part. Good Lord.
Exactly. So then, what else causes earthquakes? Fracking.
Yep.
So then, to dig these, they're employing some type of fracking to dig these wells, these injection wells. So they're deep well injection wells, which that's like injecting like fracking. So it's not just like they just dug a hole and they're just putting water down it. No, it's reverse fracking. Instead of pulling it up, they're pushing it down.
They're trying to fill gaps in the Earth's crust with this contaminated water.
But not just gaps. These are wells. These are artificial wells, and putting that in there causes pressure. So it pushes on those tectonic plate areas.
It builds up. I think the other thing that they're trying to do is have the Earth cleanse the groundwater. If you look at areas like Tennessee, because I know a little bit about it, they got a bunch of limestone and they got a bunch of sand. So literally, the reason that groundwater is so pure is because the Earth is filtering it. It's a natural now, because I just saw this whole article about it where they were talking about how they don't take care of their top water, their surface water like they should, but don't worry, it's being filtered through the ground. It's going through limestone. It's going through sand. It's going through all these different things, and it hits underwater, whatever, artesian well, and then people are drinking it or they're using it, but it's been filtered. So I'm like, they are doing this shit on purpose, feeling that, and the pressure builds up, causes earthquakes, and ain't nobody noticed that. Hey, well, ain't no fault line over here. What's the problem? We haven't had an earthquake in here since 1826, but all of a sudden you got earthquakes now because they're forcing water into them. That sounds kind of like plowshare, huh? But we'll discuss that later.
And then 2 months later, on April the 12th, 2023, a truck that was responsible for carrying 40,000 pounds of contaminated soil from East Palestine, where a train carrying hazardous materials crashed in February, overturned. The Ohio Environmental Protection Agency said that roughly half of the soil that was on the truck ended up spilling along the highway.
Oh my God. So are you just clumsy? The fuck?
So now they contaminated more areas. outside of East Palestine.
So I'm asking a question. Is this on accident or on purpose? Because look at it. Maybe they didn't want that sample to get there. And so maybe they had, it got spilled. So just like on last week's podcast, we had talked about a prototype of an airplane that was on a train. The train arrives. The prototype's not on the train. So either one of two things happened. Either that sample, they didn't want to get there because it was too incriminating. So, hey, look at this. We have another derailment. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my Lanta, another one. It doesn't bother anybody. Either this shit ain't safe or it wasn't, that they didn't want that shit to get there. So I'm just saying, what is your opinion, Mr. Roscoe?
Oh, you know what it is. This is not incompetence. This is saboteur follow-through. That's what this is.
I disagree with. I don't think this was a saboteur again. I think this is...
That you put 40,000 pounds on the truck when you shouldn't put 40,000 pounds on the truck?
I think the powers that be didn't want that sample to get there because it was too incriminating.
A rogue element or it's an inside job. Either way, it's a saboteur.
Yeah. I'm saying it wasn't. It's not the original saboteur that initially sabotaged the train. Yeah. Okay.
Or maybe it is.
That's what I'm. Hold it. That's what I'm saying. See when you say saboteur, see, you're saying in the old school. All you're saying is this was intentional, whatever it was. And my question, because you called the person that did the initial saboteur, I'm saying it could. Do you think it's the initial saboteur? You're saying I don't know, but all I know is that this was an accident. That's what this is not an accident. This is old school, putting a fucking bomb on a railroad track, and that's a saboteur, and World War II type shit. I'm just saying, is it the same saboteur or is it a different saboteur? That was all I was asking.
Yep. At this point, it doesn't even fucking matter because...
It don't matter. This goes back to, this was a narrative. What we talked about last week.
The next thing, months later, because there was a lot of shit going on this year, is the Maui fires. On August 8th, there were spontaneous fires that erupted and burned in an area that contained homes that were owned by indigenous Hawaiians, mostly indigenous Hawaiians. What's strange about this is when it was viewed from the air, all of the homes with blue roofs were not burned. All of the homes in the area were not burned. When you look at the burn radius, the burn pattern, the burn path, you see that it looks like it's almost a controlled grid area. And there was homes directly next to this burn site, burn area, that were not touched at all. Now, the town of Lahaina has a population of about 13,000 people. Now, 2,000 people went missing, and ultimately, 6,000 people were made homeless. So that's almost half the population of the town went homeless.
One of the things we had talked about were they had literally let the kids out of school while the parents were at work.
Mm-hmm. So they just sent the kids home, and the parents had to, rush to go and get their kids. Now, the crazy thing about all this is that there were a lot of children that died in this fire because they went home. They went home because they weren't told there was a fire. They were sent home because
they were released from school to go home, not explain. The situation was explained. Parents weren't told. And I think one of the biggest, scariest parts is you're literally eliminating heirs. You're killing a generation that would have received these properties would have gone to them. So you are cutting a bloodline. You're not simply, what's the word I'm looking for? You're
removing the chain of custody.
Yes, very good. That's an excellent term. You're removing the chain of custody. So now you got them offering to buy people's houses, which are worth millions, for $13,000 and a place to stay. How come you're not offering all this aid? Like I remember there was an earthquake in Haiti, and there was all kinds of donations. Yeah, you ain't seen all kinds of donations go up for Maui, and when you did, you saw two rich people asking for it, Oprah and Dwayne Rock Johnson. But the funny part is, you ain't hearing nothing about Zuckerberg's property being affected by this. That's weird. But again, back to what my brother tells you, this is a psyop. What that means is that this is a spy operation. A lot of this was done on purpose, and all of a sudden you're not hearing about it anymore.
Oh, I'll tell you how you know it's a psyop, and it was complete operation because there was a book that was published on August the 10th, 2 days after the fires in Maui. 2 days after the fires in Maui, not a pre-ordered book, but a fully published book. And this can only be possible if the book had been written well before the fires actually happened. It takes
too long to publish
months before the fires had happened. The book was written by Dr. Miles Stone. So you're writing about the Maui fires before they happened? Who's this guy? Edward Casey psychic? Like, what the fuck is going on here?
The issue, what we're trying to say, it takes forever to get something published. I mean, we're not talking about a simple news article. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a book. Hardbound book, old school, and it just makes you think that maybe this motherfucker has some inside information. That's all I was saying.
Well, he's part of the cover-up. Now, Herman Andaya, the head of the Maui Emergency Management Agency, who had been under fire for not activating disaster sirens during that week's wildfire response, resigned, citing health reasons. The system was created after a 1946 tsunami that killed more than 150 on the Big Island. And his website says that they may be used for alerts for fires. So another thing that I found strange that people do not remember was a news story that showed these targeting green lasers that were scanning the area weeks before. And people say, oh, it's a Chinese satellite. It doesn't matter. Those are surveying lasers that were scanning the topography. For what? Are they mapping out an area where they can fire a direct energy weapon? Because that's what caused these fires. When you look at the few photos that had been released showing cars that were burned with people still in them. Listen, when you have multiple people getting burned in cars, that's a rapid heat explosion. That means you don't have time to open the door.
They couldn't get out.
And then the rims of the car had melted. Now, that's high temperature 9/11 atmospheric skyscraper melting type of things. So then you saw this before in the Paradise fires in California where you had homes burning down and cars melting, but trees directly in the area did not burn, weren't scorched, had no carbon char on them whatsoever.
There are houses that had blue roofs that were owned by these rich elite people, and their houses didn't burn. House immediately next to it, like you said, trees that didn't burn next to these cars. That is a directional weapon. That is, we followed the interstate with this weapon, and we went to the house we wanted to go to. And so the question is, because the rumor was a laser or the energy weapon they used didn't work on the blue roof, or maybe the fact is that
what this is fascism. This is rich people and the government, the government utilities and the military industrial complex working together. Because 1 year earlier, 850 acres burned down, and that land was sold and developed to a very wealthy individual named Oprah Winfrey.
Yep.
So if you want something done and you have the money to get it done, then you pay the right people and they get the shit done. And money buys just about anything you can desire. And if that what you desire has people on it, then you have to concoct a large agenda to execute this, and you throw emotion in front of that, and you throw shilling scientists in front of that to say, oh, it was a hurricane. And like, well, when do we stop saying typhoons? Because as far as I can understand, there have never been hurricanes in the Hawaiian Islands, in the South Pacific. There's always been called typhoons. So then now they're saying there's scientists that were saying, well, it's possible that it wasn't a hurricane. Of course it wasn't a hurricane. They're saying it's high pressure winds that hit the mountains and came down the mountainside and into Hawaii, and it dried up everything so fast. So then how did that cause a fire and then the power outages at the same time?
Look, hurricanes originate in a different place. Number one. Number two, what we always talk about this distressed property. You see it in the ghetto. Most ghettos used to be white neighborhoods. Then they let certain people move in.
50 years ago, there was no history of hurricanes going back 50 years in the South Pacific.
Not in that area, no. In fact, that's why it's called the Pacific. It's peaceful. We that's what we learned in fourth grade. But what I'm saying is, people will distress a property, lower the value, then buy it. Now, when I say distress, that can be everything from crime to a weather phenomenon or
train derailments.
You can create a distressed property situation, and then this rich person comes in, Miss Winfrey, and buys it for less than $1 million.
But we think because she's a black person, she would never do that.
Yeah, or she's on
dope dealers are black. They distress properties all over America.
Look, we saw it in the Carter. We saw it in New Jack City. They took over housing projects. What we're saying
is trap house is distressed property.
And so, since that's a distressed property, the owner doesn't even want it, but you reside there for free, and you're selling drugs out of it.
Detroit,
so all of Detroit, but
Flint, Michigan, and its water.
And the thing is, this had that water problem for years now. Oh, well, how about the brother that invented that thing that sucks the water out the atmosphere, and they destroyed it? He was giving out free, clean water, healthy water. Brother worked for the Army at some point, and he's intelligent. He's saying that whoever destroyed my machine knew what they were doing, because they threw like oil or acid. They threw something in a very important part. Like he said, this is not. He specifically said this is not vandalism. If this was just vandalism, yeah, that's that word again. Saboteur. They knew specifically what
it means to sabotage some shit.
Yeah, and it was sabotage. What we're simply saying is that, why are these celebrities running to the Hawaiian Islands? Why is Zuckerberg building a bunker out there? Because, see, the thing is, when an average person builds a bunker and they get weapons and all this stuff, you call them crazy. You do TV shows about them. You report, this guy is storing 27 years worth of water and food. He's a fucking fruitcake. But
if you have $1 billion, it's just a man cave.
Yeah, well, I just think it's odd that these celebrities are moving to Hawaii and buying up all this land, because it makes you think that they don't want to be on the mainland for some reason.
Okay, so on December the 26th of this year, 2023, a Hawaiian news article was published with the headline, Maui Realtors Apologize After Sending Newsletter About Lahaina Properties. The newsletter mentioned post-Lahaina fire, the region will start the process of rebuilding and making it a potentially lucrative area for investment. How is that possible if this is a land trust and Lahainans are supposed to be owning this property? The message came after several fire survivors reported realtors asking them if they'd like to sell their scorched properties. The Lahaina community members were discouraged from doing so, reminding them that there is a land trust in the works. The last thing anybody wants to do is sell their property to someone who wants to build a McMansion. In the meantime, realtors from Ramvari Realty reported they've received death threats online after sending the newsletter.
Hey, Roscoe, let me say something. Hawaiians are used to volcanoes, lava. This ain't gonna phase them. See, what they thought, whoever planned this, because this clearly is a planned attack, as you said, saboteur. Whoever planned this figured, okay, these people, we're not giving them any aid. We won't help them. They'll sell their property for $13,000, and they don't realize that they're dealing with a people who's used to the worst case scenario. you feel me? So they're gonna be like, nah, we'll rebuild. No, are you sure you don't want to take this lucrative offer? They're like, that's not lucrative. This land has been in my family since time immemorial. No, I'm good. So that your plan is going to backfire. You've had something similar in the past, but people are waking up. Natives are waking up.
But when did this happen before? It happened before in 1857, when the blacks and poor white people were forced to vacate the land that is now the Central Park in New York City. In 1808, it was called Seneca Village. In 1808, a black carpenter named William Hamilton started the NYACMR with prominent black residents of New York City. That stands for the New York African Society for Mutual Relief. The group purchased several acres between West 82nd to West 89th Street. By 1832, 10 homes were built. The black people had gardens, they raised livestock, they fished in the Hudson River for food, and got drinking water from a nearby spring. By 1850, there were 50 homes, 3 churches, a cemetery, and an all-black school.
Oh, my God.
In 1845, there were 100 black men in the state that could vote. 10 of them lived in Seneca Village. This is before the Civil War. In 1853, New York passed a law that seized 775 acres of land in Manhattan to create the country's first ever public park. The plans took the land from 59th Street to 106th Street, and the people of Seneca Village were given until 1857 to vacate the land. Some people filed lawsuits to keep their land, but every single suit was rejected. The only thing that remains of Seneca Village is a plaque that acknowledges that it once existed there.
There's an obelisk there. An obelisk, African symbol, is there. Something else you just said that was so deep that I don't think you even realized you said it. You said they get water from what? A spring. Where is the oldest water in the world? Do you know? North America is in that area. There's a spring that is so many millions of years old, and this water, it's I don't want to, somewhere in the border of Canada, New York, that eastern area, that is the oldest water on the planet, and they know this. Well, first things first, we discussed it. Water has intelligence. Can you imagine if you drank from that well, how smart, strong, and healthy you would be? Look it up. I can't tell you exactly. I just know it's on the border between Canada and the United States. There is a spring that is 33 million years old or some crazy number like that. But yeah, that's some interesting shit right there.
Okay.
I bet you them people were super healthy. I bet you couldn't tell them shit.
100%. On October the 7th, 2023, Hamas attacked Israel. The attacks on the 7th of October happened during the Jewish holiday Simchat Torah. It also occurred 50 years and 1 day after Egyptian and Syrian forces launched an assault during the Jewish holiday Yom Kippur. The attacks were made by Hamas, an Islamist militant group best known for its armed resistance to Israel, which many people don't know was also created by the Israeli intelligence agency. Within Hamas charter, Article 7 details the mission of Hamas as the Islamic resistance movement and is one of the links in the chain of the struggle against the Zionist invader. This incident is clearly a psyop because when you talk to Israeli Defense Force veterans, they will tell you they always mention the Iron Dome that was over the area, and that is an analogy for the complete full spectrum dominance control of the air and the land around and in that area. So then for Hamas to just come over in some Cobra gliders, some motorized gliders, and then there just happens to be a rave, an outdoor rave concert going on.
Yes, preach.
And they start taking all these people captive, and all these important influencers just happen to be there. You didn't go any other place. You wanted to go where these influencers were, so you can get young people's attention to galvanize support for the resistance, right?
Don't leave out the most important part. How about they didn't hurt them? How about when they interviewed those people, they even said they were nice to them, but they left depending on which report. There was one report in America where it's the same people saying
maybe because they were Israelis. Israelis didn't want to hurt Israelis.
Hold it. Let's not. Maybe Israelis didn't want to hurt Israelis, or maybe these Muslims were just trying to make a point, and they showed it. But still, depending on, they showed this same two women being interviewed. It was the mother and the granddaughter, and grandmother, I think it was. And in America, there was like a 3-minute clip, and they're talking, and the grandmother's telling everything. But for Al Jazeera, they show the whole 5-minute clip where she said they were very nice to us. If you were sick, they helped you and they got medicine for you, and they released us after some, complete exact same situation, exact same people. But if you cut the recording short, it says one thing like it's the worst thing ever. But then they said, oh no, they were very nice to us. They made sure we had water. And if you had a health condition, they made sure you got your medicine. And so long they released us. So completely different. But this also goes back to what you're saying. It sounds like a saboteur to me. Sounds like IOP, where Israel wants everybody to take their side and against these small people. And look, I know you guys think Alex Jones is crazy, but he told you 20 years ago what was going on over there. And he said, I will no longer support Israel because they're shooting and they're doing this to little kids. And you're like, whatever. Alex Jones is crazy. But again, he's a douchebag sometimes, but he was ahead of the curve. He was talking about how they disrespect these people. And then on the flip side, the Palestinians don't treat the black Palestinians very well either.
This isn't as black and white as you think it is. And then you have
not at all.
All this money that Hamas gets, right? And they also get it from Iran. And they spent millions and millions of dollars building tunnels, but they don't help the Palestinian people.
Well, look, the other part is, you know what they call you over there, what the Israelis call the black Palestinians, and the Palestinians call the black Palestinians Kushi.
Yeah,
Kushi.
From the Kush Empire.
Yeah, no, Kushi is nigga. I know what Kush means. Kush means Ethiopia. I know that, but that's what they're calling it. Kushi means nigga to them. Mm-hmm. And so you need to know, if you're a black person and one of these people call you Kushi, yeah, that is an insult. Mm-hmm. But again, we know what Kush means, so you can't insult me with the truth. You can't insult me with when you talk about Kush and you talk about.
That's why I don't get mad at that term, because I have knowledge itself.
Yeah. See, look, and when I tell people nigga don't bother me no more, they take it all out of context. I'm like, yeah, look, if you want to fight, I got you. you ain't got to you ain't got to try to elevate the situation. Just say, hey, duct tape, I really need my ass kicked, bro.
Let me help you.
But the term Kush. Well, so what do you do with Menelik the First? What do you do with King Solomon has a baby by Fatima, who is the Queen of Sheba, and their son is Menelik the First, and he's more Jewish than you guys are. That's the and then here is the logic of these Jewish people. So if you're a born Jew, you're important. But then if you're a second generation Jew, you're not as important. But if you're a convert, you're real. But that second generation Jew ain't real, but this convert is real. Or these people, when they do DNA, what they tell you, DNA tests are completely illegal in Israel, but they sure want to test all these other people. And then to let you know that this is a narrative, the one redheaded rabbi, he's out there telling the truth about Africa. He's like, hey, there's several tribes over here that are straight up Jewish and Jewish priesthood, and they're talking about the Limba tribe in South Africa. We talked about them, and you find out that these different tribes. But he said, I think it's odd that these people in Israel, us, are out here DNA testing all these different people. He's like, what are we looking for? And when he's saying we because he's Jewish. He's like, what are these Jews looking for? And that's when you think like, that Messiah shit must be real, because they're looking for the next Messiah. They're looking for bloodlines. When you, like I said, I wish I still can find that article when they explained the actual name of South Africa, the traditional name of South Africa. All these different African countries have the word Yah at the end, like King Yah. It has to do with Yahweh, and it's crazy with this dude's breaking down that my people or the government of Israel is really looking very hard for something in Africa. We don't know what it is. The average guy don't know what it is. But I'm thinking they're looking for the next Messiah. They want to kill that bloodline before it goes anywhere, because, they've said it's happened before. It's the exact same thing when Christ was 2 years old and they killed all the 2-year-olds because they were trying to kill Christ. So you don't think that these same people are trying to do that exact same thing now? I'm just saying. We've seen it before. History repeats itself when you don't know it.
What people don't talk about is how there's natural gas in that area, and they want to take the natural gas from the area beneath it. And they also want the beachfront property for import and export. But they don't talk about that shit. See, there's a common term that you hear in that area is from the land to the sea. And that's Israelis that use that term. So they want to control...
It's like manifest destiny. They want it all.
Everything that's inland all the way to the sea.
But hold it. We just... It sounds
but
just
the people that created the concept of Zionism were atheists. They weren't even spiritual or religious people.
But neither is Netanyahu right now. He don't believe in that stuff. Netanyahu. But hold it. Sounds like some distressed property to me, don't it, bro?
Yep, that's exactly what that shit is.
I'm just saying it's the same game. Just because you change the location don't mean you still got these.
And then I was talking to this Israeli dude about the shit, and I said, "Hey man, you know what's gonna happen? They're not gonna allow those Palestinians to come back. So all that land that was destroyed, those are gonna become settlements. Oh no, that would never happen." Don't be naive, motherfucker. Like this, you getting caught up in this whole emotional thing that they wanted you to be caught up in, and you don't realize that you're a pawn in this game. But we got to we got to move on to the next one, man, because we got to keep it going.
Come on.
December the 25th, 2023. Janet Alsabard, the filmmaker known for her documentary series The Fall of the Cabal, had been confirmed death by suicide after being reported missing for weeks. She gave the world an immense gift by creating the documentary The Fall of the Cabal. But people should understand that she said herself many times that when she dies, it will not be from suicide.
I mean, you had that talk years ago. Hey, look, if I ever die, I'm not killing myself. You ain't got shit to worry about.
And I'm going to say that shit now. Like, I'm not killing myself. Ain't no plans to kill myself. I have been depressed before. And guess what?
Yes.
I did not think about killing myself.
Nope.
It's not a part of me. Like that is not part of my thinking, my process. I'm a fighter, motherfucker. Like I will fight until the death. And I'm going to take as many motherfuckers down with me as I can. And if you want to know what that'll probably look like, you need to watch this movie from the 1980s called Ninja 3: The Domination. And then go to the golf course scene where the ninja is fighting all these cops. And he's killed about 17 to 25 cops on this golf course scene. Ninja 3: The Domination.
But that was the beginning of the movie, wasn't it?
That was the very beginning of the movie. They hit you over the head with a sledgehammer at the beginning of the movie.
That's so sad. I remember that. I'm so sorry.
No, that's a fire ass movie, dude. Like people are like, it's cheesy 80s crap. Fuck you. That's a dope ass movie.
Look, there's so few movies where they actually have a real fight scene where a motherfucker can take on everybody. My favorite is, remember the end of the one with Jet Li where Hugh Law fights the
I'm nobody's bitch.
You're all my bitch.
He said the top of the pyramid.
He was walking up the pyramid. He's walking up a step pyramid, fighting people, and then you see they break away, and the whole planet's coming for him. He's like, all right, I got you. Yeah, forgive me I digress. Look, what my boy is saying is that this woman released some important shit, opened some eyes, and then they discredit her by saying she committed suicide. I think when I was watching this one, there's a CIA agent who went to jail for whistleblowing, whatever, and so he's making the podcast rounds, and dude was asking him about Epstein. He said, I think Epstein probably did commit suicide, but you got to understand. And he breaks down. He said, I went to prison. He said, the cameras in prisons never work. He said, these guys are always overworked. They're not supposed to double. That guy was on a double shift. He said, look, Epstein may have been killed. He said, because that bone that was broke, he said he could have been killed by a guard. That bone, they said when people hang themselves, only 30 to 40% of the time does that specific bone break. So he said it could have been a cop. This guy's working double shifts. You could easily bribe them, or they're just that incompetent. He said prison workers are incompetent. And he said that when you're on suicide watch, which allegedly he's been suicidal for a while, he was supposed to be in one of those paper smocks. He shouldn't have had anything at his access, and he should have been by himself. And he said the guy probably his cellmate could have killed him. He said the guard could have killed him, but he probably committed suicide because he should not have been in that situation. So, like I said, I think that suicide is one of these dismissive things. So that when somebody commits suicide, you start casting aspersions on that character. That like this chick, what did she do? Chances are she wasn't suicidal. I don't know. Like I said, but she did a gem of a documentary that people need to check out, and you need to see. Maybe she didn't commit suicide. Maybe she was suicided, as they say in Mexico for the cartels. She was suicided.
So then, all you got to do is look at the Clinton body count to see the number of people that committed suicide, quote unquote, that did not commit suicide. When you look at how strange that person, their death may have been, when you consider somebody shoots himself twice to the back of the head. What? How you doing that? How you pulling that shit off?
Well, remember the Clintons? Remember Waco? There was only 2 FBI agents that got killed. There were 2 Clinton former bodyguards, and they got killed by what? Friendly fire. I'm just putting that out there. They weren't suicided. They were hit by friendly fire. That means that their fellow agents shot them by mistake, like 26 times. What kind of mistake is that? Shooting somebody once is a mistake. That's all I'm saying.
But it's almost like when you see those movies where a machine gun is dropped and it just keeps firing, but one person is like just keeps jumping in the way, and one person just keeps jumping in the way, catching all the bullets. Like, how are you in the way of every single bullet, man?
Yeah, look, that empty machine gun, that unmanned machine gun was more accurate than a manned machine gun with the person. Yeah, look, like I said, I just think it's so odd and very telling. And again, like I said, sometimes silence is the loudest. That every time you turn around, one of these scientists or one of these people who contributed to society something very important, all of a sudden want to kill themselves. And this is what I mean by silence. We talked about Rose in the beginning, that how that silence is loud when they're not letting anybody talk, or they don't want this person to add anything to this. They're forced to be quiet. That speaks the loudest. Like, you need to recognize, like, my people, please, when they're not letting somebody talk, or that person had more to say. That story wasn't done. There was more information, and they're like, oh shit, we don't want that to get out, and so they get suicided. So I'm saying it.
So then, in the first few weeks of 2024, the list of Epstein's the list of people who were on Epstein's island or on the plane manifest is going to be released. That's going to be unsealed for a trial that's coming up. And once that comes out, man, it's going to be a damn mess, because then you're going to see some serious damage control.
Did you hear about that one victim who was begging the judge not to release her name? She's like, look, that's fine. The list needs to get out, but I think the judge was going to release her name also. And she's like, I don't want my name released. And so little shit like that is going to be the issue. Like, she deserves her privacy, but
But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. Is she, or is she a plant?
Don't know. See, the conspirator in me, the conspiracy, I don't say theory, the conspiracy nut in me, like, why do you need to release her name in the first place? So would that stop the other names from coming out, the names of the people that went there, all that kind of stuff? So it's, like I said, if they've already been victimized, you don't need to victimize her anymore, but we damn sure need that list. We need to know who's going there. And then we need to start asking those people, why were you on that island? Mr. Sean Carter, Miss Carter, why were y'all on that island? That kind of stuff.
This is my thing. Once you hear about what's going on there, and then you go there and you see that, it's one thing to go there and be like, oh, hell no, I won't be no part of this. And then you're going to be a chicken shit about it. Okay, you're a fucking coward. But then you go back again after you saw that shit the first time. It makes me think of that Cat Williams joke about how these Hollywood parties, there would be all this weird shit going on.
Wrong room.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going.
Right. And he's like, hold up, is that, what's his name?
Opie Cunningham?
Right. Exactly. And I'm like, hold up, man. And that's what I'm saying. You keep going to these parties where you know all this bullshit's going on. So then what has happened to your soul that you're willing to just bypass this all morally for the sake of what, though?
You want to kick it that bad? You mean to tell me you can't find a party where there's no debauchery? Look, don't get me wrong. I like to party, but I'm getting older. But so it's not necessary. But you mean to tell me you can't find a good, wholesome, clean party where ain't somebody ain't being taken advantage of or something like that? But I think it's coming out with the whole puffy situation that nobody wants to have. There's a conversation not being had that when people get in power, they like to manipulate, they like to take advantage. Not everybody's like that. I get that, but I'm saying that there are some people who want to take advantage of somebody, and when you have enough money, you can do that and get away with it for years, and you get away with it even longer when you're boule, when you're a gatekeeper, when you are supplying people to higher ups. So I think that's one of the big things. And there's a couple narratives that people aren't really saying. And one of them is that I hate saying this. Back in the 80s, if you were 16, they considered you grown. And a lot of these people.
No, I didn't.
Okay, hold on. People used to leave home and become. Hold it.
Hold on,
I don't
no.
agree.
See, no,
hold on.
That's your perspective as a child.
Hold it. I didn't say I agreed with it, but I'm saying that you heard about 16-year-olds partying with adults and doing all kinds of stuff, and people were drinking. I'm like,
oh, you're talking about the Franklin Credit Union scandal. Okay.
Look, and they literally sit here and they made it seem like these kids were grown and knew what they were doing.
No. I don't agree with that. No.
I don't agree with that.
Let me help you out there. Those people that were okay with that were pedophiles.
Well, that's the point I'm trying to make. Like, so if it's one time, if it's 20 times, that shit ain't right. I'm grown now. I get it, but I'm just simply saying. Back then, they talk like you shouldn't have been there, or they're big on victim shaming. But all I'm simply saying is that there's a blood. I can't think. I want to say Mob Pyru, but I can't think of his name. He was simply saying that, y'all keep jumping on R. Kelly, but there was a lot of that shit going on. And then when you hear these interviews now, there's an interview there was a singer, Danny Boy from Death Row, and he talks about. So the person that he was messing with, because he has two stories that are very wild, but he was 16 dating Mary J. Blige. So Mary J. Blige is a grown woman. He said, this is my girl, right? I'm thinking this. I don't know nothing, but she's wigging out because she heard KC was coming. So she's like, hey, hold on. Someone's knocking at the door, and come to find out it wasn't KC. And he said, I didn't know any better. I'm 16.
She was also on lots of cocaine at the time.
The other part I was going to say was that he admits to being groomed for somebody. So there's another interview, a much older and much longer interview that's out there of Danny Boy, and he says that he was being groomed by a porn star for a prominent rapper. And so you haven't heard this, right? So Danny Boy was a singer for Death Row, and I just assumed
I know who he is, motherfucker.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm not saying it for you. I'm saying it for our audience. It's just not Roscoe and duct tape talking. So I remember watching him on Luke's Peep Show. I figured Suge was screwing him. It wasn't. He was being groomed by Heather Hunter for Wyclef Jean.
Someone please call 911.
Tell them my buns are red. And so the point I'm making is that grooming is a real thing. And that's crazy when
that nigga always looked creepy anyway, though.
Which one?
Wyclef always looked like a creepy ass weird motherfucker. Ever since the fucking first Fuji's music video, I'm like, that's a creepy ass dude.
Watch the interview with Praz when he talks about Lauryn Hill knowing Lauryn Hill's mom.
All of them, listen, this is the crazy part. All of those people were fucked up. Praz was a fucking snitch. Lauryn Hill is a sociopath still to this day. Creepy ass pedo gay motherfucker.
No. You mean Wyclef, the creepy ass pedo because Prize,
Wyclef, the fucking creepy ass pedo slash con man, stealing a bunch of money for the the Haitian earthquake fund while helping out the Clintons. Yeah, fuck that guy.
Running for president of Haiti. But hold it. So that's where it gets all dicey because when
I'm so dicey.
So Prize always says he never knew that Lauren and Wyclef were dating. And so you got to ask the question, when did that start? Because remember, Lauren, he says Lauren was 14 or 15 when he was going to get her from her mom, bring her to the studio. And so people keep saying, like, how did you not know? There's actually a reason he didn't know is because he was being wholesome, say, hey, this girl got mad talent. I'm trying to bring her to the studio. Wyclef, he like, oh, yeah, buddy. So there's a disconnect there. People don't realize. So when did their relationship start? Was she that 15-year-old that Wyclef started, messing with? Because that might be why she's a sociopath. That might be why her fucking morals are fucked up because she was groomed. And then the only reason I'm saying something is to listen to the story about Danny Boy. It makes you wonder why Clef was grooming people for his own whatever. But the bottom line is that he's a groomer. She might have been groomed. That's not fair. What kind of damage did that do? What kind of damage did that do to her mentally? How'd that fuck her up? So that's what I'm simply saying is in the fact that this motherfucker Danny Boy, who's saying that he was groomed for him that guy specifically. I think people don't understand this grooming thing, how powerful it is. I don't know. That's not the right word. How fucked up it is.
This
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
year of 2023 breaks down numerologically to the number 7. And it was a spiritual year of good versus evil. And
all year long.
All through the year, you would see all these links and conversations and podcast episodes and people putting stuff up on different websites. Look at this video clip, and it was always that this is darkness, this is evil, and it was exposing evil in its purest form. Whether it's evil rabbis or Balenciaga death cults or distressed properties through warfare or fake Ukraine war bullshit, the Khazarian war bullshit. This was the year of spiritual warfare writ large in the public. The Piccolo player was especially a motherfucker this year.
I think the most important thing we need to take from this year is do not let that news cycle dictate your concern. They'll sit here and bring something up. It's in the news cycle for 3 days to 3 weeks, and then it's done. And that's the whole problem with Maui. That's not done. You can't tell me them people rebuilt in this little 4-month period. You know what I'm saying? Don't let that news cycle control your rage or your outrage. If something is bad, it's probably still going on. You need to pray for it. You need to know about it. You need to contribute to it, whatever you need to do. But the bottom line, don't let that news cycle dictate your knowledge of a situation. Once you get the information
and your worldview.
Yes. You know exactly where I'm going with this.
So, 2023 was a trip, and 2024 will be an even more wild ride to the far side. So, that's all I got. We out. Peace.
Holla back.